Hello, everybody. This is Paola Guthrie from Creating Purpose with Pau. And I welcome you to the Spanglish World Network and Heart Network on Zingo TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores. While you download it, please make sure that you rate it and you leave a comment because feedback is important to us. The app is totally free. Zingo TV is available in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs from 2016 and forward. Thank you so much for being here. Today in the house, we have Kendra Richardson. She's a balanced lifestyle educator. She is a writer and also a speaker. So thank you so much for being here. I welcome you to the house, Kendra.
I'm so happy to be here. I was just dancing and grooving to your little intro music. I loved it.
Yeah, so one of my favorite phrases that you say is that breakthrough balance is the perfect blend between humor, vulnerability, and wisdom. So that's awesome.
Oh, I love that. I think that's one of the testimonials from my website, actually. I loved that testimonial. It was so great to hear.
So please share with us a little bit about you so we get to know you more.
Yes, I would love to. So I grew up in Marin County, California, which is just about 30 minutes north of San Francisco. And I have an amazing, amazing family. I am all about family. And my parents both really built our lives from the ground up. My dad started a boat restoration company, and my mom is a hairdresser that eventually opened her own salon. So I grew up, just kind of in the land. My parents actually built our house and bought property to build our house on. So, had a little stint of living in the trailer and basically just grew up a super flower child, free spirit girl. My grandma always called me flower child. And I, went to school, had a great childhood. And when I was in high school, I became severely depressed. It was something that was ongoing, and it was something that I hid for a long time until it kind of surfaced. And then my parents, when they discovered, helped me to get, holistic healing with therapists and psychiatrists. And that really started my journey of just discovering what it meant to live an empowered, balanced life. When I was depressed, I was living in complete extremes from, one day not eating anything to the next day binge eating, or, over exercising versus not moving at all, sleeping all day to not sleeping at all. So really my journey started there of learning what I could do in order to live a life of harmony. And of course, got help from therapists, ended up going there for a year. And from there, I had always grown up knowing that I wanted to volunteer, and I had originally wanted to do the Peace Corps. And when I started looking into some other programs, I found what's called World Teach. And I got the opportunity to volunteer for a year in Ecuador teaching at a university. So this is when I graduated college. And I went to college for English literature and religious studies. So when I was in Ecuador, it was a totally transformational experience. I came home, I was kind of working in corporate America, didn't love it, ended up transitioning into a more creative space of freelance writing, and found where I am now, which is working as a content creator, copywriter, editor, sales team leader. So doing all of the different things, which really fills my heart to just embrace all of the dimensions of my life. But that is what I am doing now. And I'm primarily working to create resources to help other people live their best balanced life.
That's awesome. So let's go back to that stage in your life where, you said you were dealing with depression and I'm guessing eating disorders as well.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the signs that parents need to be looking, for girls that might be stepping into that cycle of depression and using food as a source of satisfaction, like trying to heal through food?
Yeah, that's a great question. I first want to just address that parents are so hard on themselves when it comes to the struggles that their children experiences, even more so than they are with their own struggles, right? So I know from my experience being the child that suffered with the depression and the eating disorders and the self-harming, and seeing what it did to my parents and how badly they wanted to help me. And when I was in that state, knowing that no matter how I saw them cry or, feel bad or all of those things, that it was really within me and they had nothing to do with it. So of course it made me feel terrible when I would see them so upset. And I think it's 100% completely natural as a parent to be upset. And I think it's important to, if your child is suffering with something like that, or you suspect that they are, to try and not express that in front of them, just because I think it does add an additional layer. Some signs that you could look for, I know for myself personally, I am definitely, a blend between an introvert and an extrovert. But when I was severely depressed, I was extremely extroverted and wanted to do more things by myself. I closed my doors more often, which because, of course, sometimes I wasn't doing things that I necessarily wanted my parents to see. So I think those are a few factors that parents can look out for, kind of a change in their child's spirit when they know growing up what their child was like. And if that sort of shifts to something else, that's when we see that there's probably a misalignment and some sort of misharmony in the system. But again, I would just really stress that parents, you are doing the absolute best that you can. And if your child is suffering, it really doesn't have anything to do with you. And all you can do is be there to support them, and to let them know that they are supported and they're loved, and build their self-esteem.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, another thing you mentioned is like self-harming.
Mm-hmm.
And through this journey of self-development, is like I've heard people that work with teenagers that harm themselves. It's like the pain is so big, like internally,
Yeah.
that they say that it's easier to feel the pain on their skin.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of like what you went through?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
It was either the pain was so bad that the pain on the skin felt better, or in some cases, I felt really numb and disattached from the world. And in that case, self-harming was something that made me physically feel that I was alive. But Paula, being a neuroencoding specialist, and that's how we met. And I'm sure we'll get into that story a little bit later. But as we learn about pattern interrupts and using pattern interrupts to move from an unresourceful state to a resourceful state. And what I realized when I was learning all about pattern interrupts was, holy crap, cutting myself was a pattern interrupt, an incredibly unresourceful pattern interrupt, right? But it's just a pattern interrupt. When I was feeling the pain, I would self-harm, and that would interrupt my pattern, even if it was just for a moment. So I think there are so many unresourceful pattern interrupts that we can use in our life: drinking, drugs, cutting ourselves, food, all of those things. And what's really important is just learning the resourceful coping mechanisms and tools that we can use to change that state and change that pattern, which is what I've been able to do in my healing journey.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, yes. There's people out there, even grown-ups, that I remember, I used to be one of them. There was Friday night and you're like, you need a pattern interrupt. Let's go drink a margarita, because you needed interrupt the week, however you were feeling through the week. So yes, definitely we have to look for those pattern interrupts that truly build us versus numbness in the wrong way. Do you think it's part of perfectionism that as women our limbic system is larger, which is that's our emotional brain? We're able to feel more. We have a way more variety of emotions than a male brain. And it is a blessing because we're able to show more compassion, kind, we forgive more, we tend to express more love as well. But then it comes with a lot of rules. Do you think
Mhm.
perfectionism was, I mean, what do you think about perfectionism? I'm trying to tie it down to maybe you felt like you had to be perfect, and that's what you were trapped in that cycle.
Yes, absolutely. For myself personally, I think perfectionism in general, and especially as you were talking about it in relevance to the genders, I do think that there's, social constructs that have leaked into kind of the women's perfectionist mindset, even more so than the males. But I'll just speak from my own experience in terms of perfectionism. And it absolutely was a piece of my depression. And I grew up a very severe empath and someone who was always curious and a very deep thinker from a very young age. And I would often get made fun of for it, but I would just always be asking these big life questions. What's right? What's wrong? Why is there suffering? Why is there this? And so I think for me, my desire to find the answers, to find the truth, to find what was right and wrong, and thus where I fit into the world and what I was put on this earth for, that contributed to perfectionism, which is really just self-sabotaging, because perfection is not attainable. And when we strive for perfection, we are just setting ourselves up for failure. I love this saying from Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And it is that perfectionism is just fear in high heels. And I love that so much. And I relate to it so much because it's like one of those things where perfectionism is what you put on your resume as your flaw, right? It's kind of that thing that we know is a flaw, we know is an unresourceful emotion, but there's a little bit of bouginess to it, a little bit of class to it. So I absolutely love that quote. And I think just kind of deconstructing that, okay, maybe perfectionism, sounds like I'm a perfectionist, I'm going to do a perfect job. But really what it is fear that you're not good enough, or that you're not knowing the truth, or you're not doing what's right, which were those things that I was so concerned about from such an early age. So I think that just realizing that, number one, perfection is not attainable is the first step. And two, realizing that perfectionism is overrated. Because if everything were perfect, we would never experience these elevated states of joy, these elevated states of gratitude, these elevated states of happiness. It would all just kind of be just one line going across. And I'm sure, Paula, in your life and other people watching this as well, you may have discovered in more than one case that it's often in your mess that you find a message. And in your pain that you find your purpose. So I think leaning into those imperfections and embracing them is where we really find true happiness.
That's beautiful. Yes, yes. And as in a journey as in motherhood is where
Mm.
I learn that it was okay to being, imperfect. And it
Mm.
was okay to just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Because I can't, like here comes to this is one of my biggest blessings that I have to, be grateful for, for you, for Joseph, for the team that that teach us. You guys are mentors, and I'm grateful because I'm a better parent, because I have been in this journey, and I know that being perfect, that has no standards.
Mhm.
Has no standards. So as a mom, I think, and as a wife, has truly allowed me to grow, because it is through the adversity that I don't know how to handle the situation that we find, the message is, you find the joy, the gratitude, and the truly beauty of life.
Yeah.
So for any of our beautiful women out there that you feel trapped in a world where you feel like it has to be perfect, that the marriage has to be perfect, that your children have to be perfect, that the workplace has to be perfect, that you have to be the perfect boss, allow us to tell you that that's not a happy place to be. You know, it is not a happy place to be, because it is within the messy that we truly enjoy, life, and we get to see how strong we are, and how
Mhm.
much wisdom we're using, and how vulnerable we are.
Yes,
Being, had so much to learn still, and bring the humor, like, had
absolutely.
the flavor. So going back to you teaching us about your story, when you felt discouraged, when you felt depressed, when you felt this dissatisfaction of life, what was it like for any of our viewers out there that might be dealing with this situation, or they're trapped in this cycle? uh,
Mm.
what it was like.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And to be completely honest, sometimes these questions are a little bit harder for me to answer, not because it brings up the pain of the past, because oftentimes I find when I look back onto this period of my life, I've blocked a lot of it out, I think, to protect myself from that pain that I
Hmm.
experienced. But when I really think back to that time in my life, I felt disattached from the world and from the communities around me. I felt numb at times, and at other times I felt, extremely anxious and in despair. Um, in a way, I almost felt like I knew something that everyone else didn't, or that they knew something that I didn't. And I felt like I was living on a different planet. And I think that is interesting because it's something that even now, 10 years later from my healing journey, being on the outside and thinking back on that, I think that's an experience that a lot of us have. We get into these groups, or we start operating on a certain frequency or vibration, and everything around that is so different that it seems like it's a different planet, right? So there's the whole spectrum of emotions, I believe. And of course, depression would be a low vibration, a low frequency state of living. And, fulfillment and empowerment really being at the forefront. And eventually, I believe all of us have a piece of the divine inside of us. So when we really work towards it, that fulfillment and empowerment can become something absolutely divine, and extraordinary. But when you're living in that empowerment and fulfillment, and you're trying to connect with someone who's severely depressed, it is like two different planets, and it's hard for us to relate with each other. And I think that's one of the issues that we see in society, with so much polarizing messages and belief systems. But I think when we can, pull from that place of empathy, we can really, cross that bridge and remove that boundary, and say, hey, why don't you come over and come to this side of the spectrum a little bit, and I can help show you the way.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes, thank you for saying that. Yeah, practice that, and the curiosity, right?
Yes.
Especially if we have those around. It's like,
Mhm.
if you notice something's off, it's like, yeah, be curious. It's like, bring them to your side. That's awesome. So how did you find that purpose to to say, okay, this is enough, this is not for me, there is a brighter future ahead of me? Were you able to remove yourself to uh better, a better place?
Yeah. I think for me, where it really started was, of course, as I mentioned earlier, I went to therapy, and that was huge with helping me learn general coping mechanisms, a lot of which I still use today. Even something as simple as anchoring in a positive sensation or emotion, like the smell of your grandma's cookies that she used to make you when you're sick. So it reminds you of the times when everything was so simple, or whatever it may be. Those are coping mechanisms I still use today. And I'm sure that anyone watching this who has suffered with mental health also knows that it never leaves you completely. You are always going to be the same spirit, and you're always going to have a mind that is not the same as your spirit, but it is going to be constantly running a feedback loop of different emotions, high and low. And so, of course, I've experienced low emotions since the time where I stopped self-harming. But of course, healing is a spectrum, and it's an ever-going journey. And so after therapy, I definitely had the foundation, but I wasn't completely, like, I wasn't where I am today, if that makes sense. And so after going to therapy, I went to college because I was around 16 to 18 when I was in therapy for about a year or 2 years. And when I went to college, I started to understand that people can be different, and it's okay that my story is my story, and I've struggled with these things and other people struggle too. And I went to Ecuador after I graduated and volunteered abroad. And throughout that entire process, I was exploring and experimenting and learning different things about my body and spirit's holistic wellness. And what I realized is it's all connected. So the life of your dreams begins at the elevation of your beliefs, but it also begins with the food that you eat. And all of these things work together to influence our mind and body into what we look like, what we feel like, how we interact with the world. So through those discoveries, I was able to help myself get to the place where I am today, of course, with the help of mentors like Joseph McClendon, who we both know and love. So I have been definitely blessed with guides along the way. And I think, just for everyone out there listening, the number one guide is always going to be yourself, because your body is always giving you signals and you just need to tune into them. And I think a lot of the times we think our purpose is something that we have to uncover or discover or, go somewhere to find. But our purpose is always within you. And I think it's something that we often overlook, but it's really the intersection of your passions, your skill sets, your natural born gifts, and what you can do to contribute to our world. And when you mix those all together, that's when you find your purpose. And oftentimes you'll be like, oh, it was that thing I've always been good at and I've always loved doing, and it's always felt great for me. And that's exactly what it is. So I think when you can tune in to what makes your body feel good, that is really the first step. And that's what led me to, just stack all the way up, little bit by little bit, feel good by feel good, clue by clue, to uncover my purpose, which is now to help others uncover their purpose and, live at their ultimate fullest potential. I actually have a blog on uncovering your purpose, and I have a little 5-step method to it with a free quiz that is Ayurveda informed, and it's super fun and quick. So if you guys want to check that out, I will share my information at the end, but my Instagram is at Breakthrough Balance. You can find it there in my link tree, and also at KendraRichardson.com is my website. So if you're like, what is my purpose? You're going to see that you already have it inside you just the way that you are, and you can go take that quiz.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Sometimes we think, I need one more degree. Sometimes we think, oh, once I finish, like mine was, oh, when I finish college, life was going to get better. Just hustle. Sometimes you think it's something you have to obtain, and it's not the car, it's not the house, your dream house you want to build that's going to bring you that level of purpose, but it is within you. And
Mhm.
that is beautiful that you were able to discover, your purpose. You were able to experience uh, true light, true love.
Thank you.
Yes, it's self-accepting. That's what I'm going back to. Like, this is accepting who
Mhm.
you are. Uh, as simple as that. It's like loving yourself, and knowing that you're worthy of being here.
Mhm.
And then it's like you said, continue to stack up. Build success can only be built uh, with success on top of it. And success is different for every single one of us. For
Mhm.
some people, it could be just joy, peace, practicing their
Absolutely.
faith. It could be just creating impact in another person. It's just the definition of success is different for everybody. But if you
Yeah.
can just do what you love and then just stuck, then you know you'll truly find that what you're here for, which is our true purpose. And I know a lot of us. I see people in their 40s and their 50s, and they're still looping around trying to figure out their purpose.
Mm.
So thanks for sharing
Of
your
course.
experience.
I love what you shared as well, just about the dimension to the word success. And I think the same could be said for purpose, right? Like, there is the macro definition of your purpose that encompasses everything that you'll do here on earth. And then there are also micro purposes that we all have, like the micro purpose of our body containing our spirit, or the micro purpose of you being a mother. But you're not just a mother, you're also all of these other things that are also a part of your purpose. So I think, to not overthinking it to the point where you're like, I have one purpose, I need to discover it. No, you have many, many purposes within your life, for sure.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Yes, we do. Yes, we play different roles as well. So,
Yeah.
yes, definitely. And I would like to add that sometimes whenever we feel in that dark place, for things to change, it's like we have to change. It's like I have to change. I have to choose. Do I want to stay here, or do I want to adopt that new habit that is going to interrupt the pattern of negative thoughts, like Kendra was mentioning earlier. Use
Mhm.
those good resources are going to interrupt those patterns where we go into the dark place, where we feel like we're not worthy, where we feel that those negative thoughts are taking over us. Is that
Mhm.
we have the power to change. So if we want to tilt our life to be a little bit brighter, because there's always room for improvement. I don't know about you,
Mhm.
Kendra, but it's like
Yeah,
sometimes I feel like, well, I could be a better wife, I could be a better mom, I could be a better presenter.
definitely.
And it's like making those shifts with like tilting the way we do things and trying out if this is going to bring us a better outcome.
Mhm.
So that
Absolutely. Following what feels good. Follow what feels good.
yes, definitely. I use core values. I don't know about you. Do you use core values to realign when you're like doubting yourself? If
I
this
have not. I have
You have
not.
not? Okay,
What
yeah.
does that look like for you?
You choose core values to, like, the first time I used 4 core values
Mhm.
to truly transform my life.
Mhm.
I chose, like, love. I chose laughter, courage, and creativity, because I wanted to become a speaker. I wanted to create content. So those were my core values. But
Mhm.
now that, like, if I'm doing something and I feel disconnected, then I ask myself, am I showing up with love? Am I showing up with
Mm.
faith, with gratitude, with joy, with integrity? So with that, then I realign, because sometimes it doesn't happen as often, but at the beginning of it, it was a lot of self-doubt. It's like, am I on the right path? It's like I don't see. uh I guess I was looking for external validation,
Mhm.
but I begin to build my internal validation with what I wanted and based on my core values. So I just didn't know if you use core values too.
I haven't, but that sounds really awesome and definitely something I'd like to try.
So tell us, share a little bit about what happened to you when you spend that time volunteering. What's something that you could recommend to us to volunteer and help others? What are the benefits of it, of your experience?
Oh, yes. I love this question. So, of course, as I shared, I went to Ecuador for a year and taught there as a volunteer. And volunteering has really been something that I've been passionate about my whole life. So, I've worked at, Alzheimer's homes, and I also taught in Spain to some high schoolers, which was a volunteer thing. Working at soup kitchens, volunteering with the homeless. But what I love the most about volunteering is you go into it thinking that you're there to help someone else. And of course, most of us, that is our intention. We want to help other people. And yet, every single time I volunteer, I take away more than I expect to give going in. And I really feel like I'm the one who's being helped just with the perspective shift that comes from connecting with people from different walks of life and people that have had extraordinary lives and also lives of, immense suffering, and being able to serve and connect with them is one of the most beautiful things to me personally. I always grew up with the belief, and it was actually something that I sort of struggled with, was when I was growing up, I recognized how much privilege I had in my life. And, growing up in Marin County and seeing the affluence of the area and having a strong family and not having parents that were divorced, my parents stayed together, and all of those amazing things. And I would see all of this suffering in our world. And even within my own family, my sister lost her eyesight when she was 16 from a medication that she had a rare side effect to. And when these things would happen and I would come into contact with this suffering, it just didn't make sense to me, like why I was so privileged and other people I was seeing these terrible things happen to. And it really established a core value for me, which is, for those that have a life of privilege, with that great privilege comes great responsibility. And that is something that I've carried on my back, not as a burden, but really as a purpose that drives my life and my intentions, which is, I recognize that I have received privilege. And now what can I do with that? God, use me. Show me what I can do with that and take me there. I'm here to be your vessel. And I really want to serve others and kind of make it more equal in the world, a more equitable and happy place in whatever way that I can.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. And you have worked with Dr. Amen, and that's one of the things that he recommends when we volunteer. He's a famous psychiatrist, by the way. So he recommends, whenever you go out there and you help another soul, it's like you're going, I mean, biologically speaking, it's like that huge dose of dopamine is going to be released within you. So you feel good about helping others. You feel good about knowing that you're helping one more person out there. So that is beautiful. Now that I mentioned Dr. Amen, what was it like working with him? And I know you work with Dr. Joseph McClendon as well. Let's tilt our conversation into leadership a little bit more. So share with me what have you learned?
Great. I love that question. And especially because both of them are such extraordinary leaders. I will talk just a little bit about Dr. Amen first. I definitely have more of a relationship with Joseph just because I've worked with him for longer, about 2 years now. And Dr. Amen, I had the privilege of working with for about 6 months. But in terms of leadership, with Dr. Amen, what stood out to me the most about working with him and his work is really with his initiation and uncovering of the importance of brain imaging when we are treating patients who are suffering with mental health issues. And this was a huge breakthrough and enlightening space for me because I learned from Dr. Amen what he's learned from actually physically looking at the brain, which most psychiatrists and therapists do not do. And what he's learned is that each brain and each mental health situation is completely unique. So there are what he's found so far, I'm going to get this number a little bit off, but somewhere around like 25 types of depression and 34 types of anxiety. So that was something that I never knew. I always thought that mental health, the way that traditional therapies make it seem, is so black and white. And so learning that was so enlightening and empowering because I really felt that when I went through the therapy process, I had a psychiatrist who, after talking to me for 15 minutes, said I was bipolar and wanted to give me medication for that. And I do not doubt that I definitely had probably some bipolar characteristics, which would make her think that when I was living in that state of depression. And at the same time, it is a little alarming when people are getting prescribed medication within 15 minutes without looking at their physical brain and seeing what's actually going wrong. So I am just so proud to have had the opportunity to work with Dr. Amen. The work that he's doing is so absolutely needed and so vital. And he is just one of those people who's truly transforming the trajectory of mental health and how people can get help and removing that stigma. So it was just a delight to work with him.
Yes, definitely. And I met you at an event, and you were able to share the stage with several of my mentors and leaders. So what is it like? Teach me what have you learned, like based on your experience with them, and to share with leaders what leadership is like at a higher level.
I love that question. And I don't think I actually got to share a little bit about Joseph. So I'll include him in the answer to this question. Working with these leaders has been absolutely amazing, especially because they're really steeped in the personal growth and development industry. So it's a new kind of leader, really, to me. And what I've learned from Joseph and what I think all great leaders do is they lead with love. Everything that they do is really to serve other people, and they listen to other people, and they think about other people, and they hold them in their intention. And that's something really powerful that Joseph does every single time he interacts with any of us or any audience that he's speaking in front of. And he also always gives it back to the team. So he is always highlighting everyone else around him. And I think great leaders do that. They build everyone else up. And they see the value and importance in each of the people that are within their community. Working with Joseph, though, has been completely life-changing. His methodologies and his teachings have absolutely supercharged my own healing journey and helped me elevate into these higher states of being, just in terms of my own personal mental health. And something that always amazes me about Joseph is it is rare that you will find a celebrity that is even more loving, even more mindful, even more present, even more truthful in person than they are on social media. And that is Joseph McClendon III. Like, he just gets better every single time you interact with him. And I've had the pleasure of interacting with him for long stints. We'll have a boardroom session and plan the next year of initiatives for 10 hours in a boardroom, and he doesn't get cranky. Like, he is just absolutely amazing. I was telling a friend about him the other day, and I said, when I think about Joseph, I really think about coming into contact with someone who's really in between our world and the next world. Like, you know, when you meet those people and they're just so spiritually connected and so wise that it's like they're no longer here, like they're on their way up. Like they're already in that middle ground of being half spirit and half human. And that is absolutely what Joseph reminds me of. And his presence in my life is something that I will cherish for the rest of my life.
Thank you for sharing that, because my hobby is one of my hobbies is like study leadership and leaders. And what I am finding out is that a true leader shows up with those core values, the same core values each time. There is no difference roles, like that's what I'm trying to express. What I've learned is like they show up with the same core values each time at each situation. Seeing and experiencing the interaction with Joseph had taught me to be humble, like even more. Like there is no ego. I mean, I've never experienced any ego being around him. It's like very humble. And when you try to love him, like if you give him a compliment, he gives the compliment back at you. And it's like, oh my goodness, like he gives the love back. And that's my one of my missions that I feel like is like bringing that knowledge to the companies. It's like, this is what I've learned and this is what I have experienced. Because you feel that, like you were saying, is like he shows up at a different level, and it's love. It truly, that's what it is. It's like that's the main ingredient that he uses. And there is no, because you see leaders out there and we're all learning, like I'm in the process of learning, but you see leaders out there that they shift their identity. Like they are one way at this time and they'll be a different way at a different event or at a different meeting. It depends who they're talking to. And that's cool. They're on their journey of being a leader, but there is more than that. I mean, it's like there is more, and I would love to learn and practice and own that type of leadership that he represents. So thank you for saying that. What have you seen, like now with this new great resignation, people are walking away, not everybody, but there's a percentage out there. What do you think are kind of like strategies and techniques that we can implement within our team to create the safe and belonging? What have you seen or what have you experienced?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think that making people feel like they belong in the workplace has to do with the collaborative effort of the leader and the person being led in finding a position within the company that really highlights their natural gifts and just kind of their spirit in general. So I think that there is a lot of misunderstanding and misalignment on, okay, these are the characteristics that I have, and that means that I will thrive in this type of position. And I think that is part of the reason why a lot of people are leaving their jobs, is because they're not feeling fulfilled, because they're not exercising their fullest potential. So I think really the most important things in the workplace are going to be truly honoring and seeing the person for who they are. And the second part is really going to be that growth element. I know for myself personally, growth and freedom of movement is such a big value for me. And I would not work at a place where I didn't feel like I could grow in that place. So I think when we can operate from that place of love, like you were talking about, that real leaders like Joseph and Dr. Amen do, instead of that mindset of fear and scarcity and I am the leader, I am in power, so that means I must keep them in a certain way so that they do not become in power and I stay in power. When we have those leaders in the workplace, people want to work for and with them.
Yes, I love what you said, because I go back to like level one leadership is like lead yourself. Who are you and how do you want to like inspire yourself first?
Mhm.
Because there's times there's days where you're not connected with your mission. There's times that like, so leadership number one is like we have to learn to lead ourselves, to be like, hey, wake up, like realigning, like I was telling you earlier, is like, am I showing up with my love, with my integrity, with my gratitude, with my joy?
Mm-hmm.
And whenever we learn, I truly believe this, like when we learn to guide ourselves first, lead ourselves, then we're going to be able to inspire others. And if we learn to lead ourselves, then you can teach others to lead themselves as well. I think that's just a huge
Mm-hmm.
it's a huge piece of a puzzle for leadership. But that's just me, and I get like really excited about it because that's kind of like my hobby. Oh, please, we only have about 5 minutes left. So do you have an ideal client? Who do you serve? How can we
Yes.
find you?
My ideal client is a want it all woman. So that means that you are a dimensional woman, which we all are, and you are seeking to empower all of the dimensions and different facets of your life so that you can do it all and still have harmony in your life.
Yay, yes. There's a lot of beautiful women out there that are trying to do it all, and they can do it all. They just need the right strategies and techniques where they can have peace within them as they're trying to do the task that they
Absolutely.
want to accomplish. I mean, as women out there, we have a larger precortal uh,
Prefrontal
frontal
cortex.
cortex. Thank
Yeah.
you. Typically, women's do. So we tend to be better at organizing, planning, getting the task done. It just typically, we just want to do more and multitask. So I believe in the power of women, but also we have to balance. And I'm glad you are here to help us with the right strategies and techniques. Where can we find you?
You can find me at kendrarichandson.com or on Instagram, where I am most active at Breakthrough Balance.
Yeah. Is there a last message you want to share with us today before we go?
I think my last message would be to realize and get in touch with the divine that lives inside of you. And especially to my teens and my youth out there, because I suffered in my early years, and those are really hard years. I'm looking at the camera now. I see you. I see the divine in you. And even if life doesn't make sense right now and there's pain and you don't understand why, hang in there, because I promise you that when you're older, the dots are going to connect and everything's going to make sense. And you're going to see exactly why all of the experiences are happening for you, and they're going to be there to build the person that you are supposed to be. So stay in there, stay confident. I love you. You are divine. And that is it. And thank you so much, Paula, for having me. This was a delight and an honor.
Thank you for being here. I'm always, like happy and excited to learn from you, and know that I appreciate you, I admire you, and I just cannot wait to continue to learn even more from you, Kendra. So thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story and your message with us today.
Thank you so much. That means
Thank
so much.
you. I hope you all find a word, a phrase, an aha moment that you can implement into your life, that you can share with a friend, that you can share with a young teenager out there that is struggling, that you can better their life with our message today. So blessings to you all. Thank you so much. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish radio network. Please check spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thank you so much, and blessings. We'll see you next time. Bye.